Greetings travelers, welcome to Lorespire. Today we're talking about all of the beasts, monsters, and mythical creatures of the Wayward Realms for which I could find information. As always, it is early in development, so this information could be subject to change. The images shown in this video depict the creature I am speaking of at the time it is shown, unless otherwise noted. We will start off with mythical type creatures and megafauna, then move on to your more common beasts, followed by therianthropes, and then my personal favorite, the undead, which I think may technically be considered mythical in the Wayward Realms setting, but I'm giving them their own section because undead are awesome. Also, I think it is safe to assume that there will be many more creature types in the Wayward Realms than those that are listed here today. First up, we have crab people. Crab people are a popular community suggestion thanks to an old inside joke on the Once Lost Games Discord. Eventually, the cowardly developers caved under the pressure, and now there are crab people as enemy creatures in the archipelago. Once Lost Games has not really released any lore on these creatures, but we do know that they have written it, at least in part, so that's something. Stay tuned, we're sure to learn more at some point. Next up, we have dragons. More angel than mere beast, dragons are the highest form of life in the Wayward Realms. They are believed to carry out the will of the goddesses and have had major impacts on the world throughout history. It is little wonder that cults have formed around them, dedicated to serving and protecting the colossal creatures. Even kings have been known to seek out their advice or their approval before taking the throne. Despite being referred to as angels, these beings are not benevolent and are capable of holding grudges for centuries. From time immemorial, adventurers have attempted to slay these titans. Those who succeed are forever remembered as heroes, but most simply wind up as bones strewn across the dragon's den. Raganoth is the name of the dragon that is rumored to live within the volcano that looms over the orcish capital city of Adredra, and it is said that it is only by its approval that an orc king is allowed to rule in She. I also found the mention of a dragon named Drakenoth, but that's literally all I could find, just its name, no other info, but it is out there, so we'll probably meet it at some point. Bookworm. Bookworms are enormous creatures that look like the love child of a beholder and a sarlacc. These creatures are said to be the scourge of the library, whether that means a wide range of libraries throughout the archipelago or just the Library of Logos is uncertain. Personally, I think it would probably be just the Library of Logos, otherwise nobody would be visiting any library in the Wayward Realms. That thing's freaking terrifying. Jormungandr. Jormungandr appears to be a mysterious earthbound creature living on the archipelago. Named after the world serpent of Norse myth, these creatures are a rare sight in the archipelago and certainly do look fearsome. Personally, I don't think this knight here has a chance against this thing, but maybe you will in your playthrough. Not much else is known about Jormungandr at this time. Malice. Malice, or Melora, which is the plural for malice, are believed to be powerful, god-like beings, with some even being worshipped by cults. They are said to come in a variety of moralities and have their own personalities. Their origins are a mystery, and their intent is even more enigmatic. Among their number is the Malice Karlach, known to usher in change, occasionally for the better, but often for the worse. It is said that the dwarves hate blondes because there is a female demon with magma golden blonde hair that hides in the bottom of the mountains and likes to scare dwarfs. She fits every description of a Malice, and it is said in some tales that she has reached Malice level. There is at least one other Malice that has been revealed by Once Lost Games, and that is the Malice Odiamos. We know that he was a hateful being and that he was banished from the continent of Lavinium by Saint Valentos, who was an ogre. So if you want to have a chance to best a Malice in your Wayward Realms playthrough, you better play an ogre. Ogres are awesome. Now this next bit is completely unofficial, but the Melora have been vaguely likened to Daedric princes, so adventurers may get to have some very memorable moments and interesting interactions with Melora when they meet them. Sea monsters. Sea monsters lurk in the waters of the archipelago. I couldn't find any real lore information on them, but this image does depict one. They are obviously large and look somewhat like a plesiosaur. For those of you planning to be pirates or sailors, these creatures could become your most feared enemies. Nymphs. Nymphs are the daughters of the goddesses and are a lower form of divinity. They are somewhat territorial and can have some influence over nature in their territories. For example, a river nymph might cause the river in her territory to overflow, flooding the surrounding lands and villages. So be sure to warn the local farmers against angering them. There is also said to be a nymph that lives in a lake on the island of Ijar, so we can probably expect to meet at least one nymph in early access. Golems. Golems are confirmed to be in the Wayward Realms, though we know next to nothing about them, except that they look like this and seem to probably be made of stone. Caliban. Now this here is an interesting one. Caliban are not natural to the world, having fallen to the earth long ago within the chunks of a broken moon. Somehow these bug-like creatures are related to bookworms and seem to attack in swarms. They only feed on magical energy and have a sixth sense that draws them to it. They will drain the essence from supernatural creatures and sorcerers alike. The Inquisition breeds and trains Caliban to help them hunt for magery. Their rearing and training is one of the Inquisition's darkest secrets, and a true test of one's devotion to the cause. Now, as far as we are aware, these are the only beings that are alien to the planet of the Wayward Realms, having come from the moon, apparently, the moon that was destroyed, which we can see in certain screenshots, and also seems to be depicted on the concept art for Fortuna, the goddess who was slain by her own sister. But enough about goddesses, I suppose. We'll be covering them in the next video. Kelpray. Kelpray are aquatic reptilian predators that traverse the waters and lands of the archipelago. The Kelpray has markings that can make it resemble a horse's corpse. Along with the terrible smell that it gives off, the Kelpray's appearance is used to lure carrion eaters to it as it lays still along the shore waiting to ambush them. Wyverns. Wyverns are a territorial apex predator that can be found in the Morathi wastes, though it is unclear if they are exclusive to Morathi. They are related to Scrags, and this is the only creature on the list so far for which I could not find an image. Scrags. Scrags were inspired by the Dragonling enemies from Daggerfall. I couldn't find much more information than that on Scrags, but it has been suggested that they may be a creature that attacks in swarms and could possibly spit fireballs. They are related to the Wyverns, as we just mentioned. Chimeras. The Chimera is a strange, demonic-looking beast born to various species of other animals, usually abandoned by the parent after birth and hunted down by most societies. They sometimes find a home amongst Cambion groups who sympathize with these similarly afflicted creatures. Now, if you want to get some flavor for the Chimeras, you should read the lore book called Rejected in the Library of Logos. Okay, it's a pretty good story, and it'll give you a lot more of a feel for what Chimeras are. Morathi Stingroot. Despite the name and the fact that they spend their lives stationary like a plant, the Morathi Stingroot is actually an animal. Scholars believe these creatures once dwelled in the deep, but were able to adapt to life on land when Morothweir was raised out of the ocean. They're known to prey on carrion feeders, who are attracted to their rotting, corpse-like smell, as well as any unlucky creature that wanders near their venomous, barbed tentacles. Being stung by one can cause intense pain and sickness in humans and demi-humans. Despite these dangers, the goblins of Morrothwire have learned to cultivate and preserve them as a food source. Pickled Morothi stingroot has recently become a delicacy amongst Splinter's nobility, and it is now widely traded throughout the kingdom. Giant rat. Also called a rat king, this giant vermin burrows into crypts and tombs with its massive claws, using the tentacle crown on its nose that you see right here to find its way through the darkness and feast on the corpses within. Unlike their smaller rat cousins, the Rat King is more individualistic and doesn't breed nearly as rapidly as normal rats. This thing does look more formidable than your typical giant rat, and I can just imagine the first one of these two I run into in the dark and have to battle blind is going to be a terrifying experience. Giant cockroaches. Giant cockroaches, as they are called on the archipelago, are mysterious creatures with no clear origin. They roam dungeons, cleaning up any of the corpses left in the wake of an adventurer's incursion, including often the adventurer themselves. Despite the colloquial name, they are not actually insects. Cave snake. The cave snake is a serpent which has adapted to life underground and can be found in caves, abandoned dungeons, and the occasional crypt. Judging by the fangs in the image, I think it's safe to assume that they will be venomous. Giant spider. I couldn't find any info at all on this, absolutely nothing, but I did find this screenshot here. And just kind of inferring a bit from it, giant spiders could possibly be native to some of the forests in the archipelago, as this one seems to have been encountered in a forest. Okay, now this is definitely going to be a favorite for a lot of you. We're up to therianthropy. Therianthropes are those who are cursed or blessed, depending on your viewpoint, with the ability to turn into a grotesque creature between man and beast. Currently, the only forms of therianthropy that are planned for the Wayward Realms are werewolves, were-rats, and were-boars. Despite the names, none of these are actually related to the animals they are named for. They simply have features that remind people of those animals, and so have been given those names. Were-rats are meant to be lighter and faster than the others, whereas the were-boar is meant to be a beefy, tanky sort, and the werewolf is meant to be a middle ground between the two. If you become a therianthrope, you cannot control when you transform. There may be many different circumstances that could cause a person to transform, which will surely make it difficult to prepare for or time a transformation. The devs want this to feel like an actual curse, and not just some power to be used at your leisure. With that being said, if you do learn the triggers and how to anticipate them, it may be possible for you to time your transformations to be advantageous, possibly allowing you to defeat enemies that you would otherwise not have a chance against. Becoming a therianthrope is something that can just happen to you, presumably through some interaction with a therianthrope like being bit by one, but that is just an assumption on my part. We don't actually know. It seems pretty likely that this is some type of disease or affliction to be contracted, but the devs have said that if therianthropy is something that can happen to your character without your consent, as seems likely, then they will include a cure for it. Now, for my favorite part of the video, we have the undead. So, concerning undead in the Wayward Realms, there are 3 general types. Reanimated undead, which is those who are dead, but have been reanimated through magical means. These would be skeletons and zombies and possibly others. The only official confirmation we have of reanimated undead in the Wayward Realms is skeletons, though I imagine that we'll be seeing zombies and possibly wights and who knows what else. Skeletons. Skeletons are bones of the dead that have been animated with necromancy to serve their master. They appear to be slow and clumsy in the trailer videos we've seen of them, which just makes sense if you're an animated pile of bones. Skeletons can be covered in armor and can wield weapons and are likely to be the weakest of the undead. I don't know about you, but I can't wait to start animating skeletons for my own nefarious purposes in early access next year. Next, we have the involuntary undead. These are undead who died and for some reason did not fully pass on to whatever afterlife awaits mortals in the Wayward Realms. These could include ghosts and spirits and the like. Ghosts and spirits are not officially confirmed to my knowledge, but I think it likely that we will meet a few during our adventures in the archipelago. Now, I don't know for certain if specters should be included in this tier of undead, but to my mind, this is the spot that makes the most sense for them. Spectre. I couldn't find any actual lore, but there is this really cool concept art here. And from this concept art, we can infer that they appear to be corporeal, at least in part. This one here has no lower half, implying that they could be partially incorporeal, or perhaps whatever physical bodies they do have simply float. Last, we have the most interesting of the undead, and that is the voluntary undead. Voluntary undead go through special rituals to become what they are. This method of turning undead allows them to keep their intelligence, which makes them much more dangerous than the average undead. Out of these undead, only vampires really can pass as mortal and can hide themselves within society. Though it is worth noting that the Mummy Kings were the rulers of Kith many centuries ago, but in their case, they were the rulers first and then became Mummy Kings. It's unclear if there might be any Mummy Kings in the archipelago, but it seems unlikely to me. I think that's something we'll most likely see in some type of sequel. I'm not entirely sure if liches are officially confirmed for the archipelago or not, but it seems likely that they'll be there. They do get referenced and talked about a lot, so I do expect there to be liches, though like I said, I couldn't find anything official for them. Death Knights and vampires are definitely confirmed. Death Knight. Death Knights are high-level undead creatures that are mostly found in the deepest and darkest crypts of the world. They use their necromantic magics to assemble armies of the dead to assail adventurers that enter their tombs. Despite being undead, Death Knights are fully conscious and thinking beings. The dark rituals used to create them originated with the ancient Mummy Kings of distant desert lands. Vampires. Vampires are voluntary undead who kept their intelligence and are the only undead who can pass as mortals. However, vampires cannot enter the hallowed ground of the goddesses that most begrudge their existence, those being Eis and Sarkanya. Neither can they wield magic that is connected to Eis, and due to Eis's connection to sunlight, it can be problematic for vampires. Weird stone and gold are very dangerous to vampires, with weird stone blocking their abilities and gold actually harming them. This is mostly speculation, but maybe there could be some kind of weapon created from weird stone and or gold that would be especially effective when fighting vampires, or possibly some oils or poisons that could be made by alchemists, using these ingredients to give the player an edge against the vampires. Who knows, maybe there could even be a faction of vampire hunters that you could join to learn to make these things or at least have access to them. Maybe if that faction exists, you would find that faction hunting you if you decide to become a vampire. The possibilities are intriguing. Once Lost Games has confirmed that player characters will be able to become vampires, they are aiming for a version of vampirism that is more of a gift to be earned than a mere disease. In the Wayward Realms, vampirism is meant to be something that you have to choose. We don't have all of these specifics, but the devs have said that becoming a vampire will be the player's choice. They will be made aware that their choice will lead to becoming a vampire, and if they choose to become a vampire, they must live with the consequences. It is planned for there to be no cure for vampirism. We don't have any specific information pertaining to what you must actually do to become a vampire, Perhaps you'll have to be the willing subject of some archaic ritual, or perhaps a death knight or lich will use its magic to change you somehow. Or maybe, and this is where my money is at, it will involve a deal with some malice. Now that could be pretty frickin' interesting. We'll have to wait and see. So, if you want to learn more about the Wayward Realms, check out these videos right here. They have a lot of good information. And if you haven't backed the Kickstarter yet, please consider doing so. The Kickstarter hit its first goal, so it is a success. The early access is guaranteed. We could really use your support hitting the stretch goals though. So if you have not already, go over there and check it out. There's a link for it in the description. This has been Chris with Lorespire. Be well, my friends.